Have you ever felt your teeth itch? I'm not talking about feeling like there's something stuck between them, or knowing that they're coated in plaque. I'm talking about the actual sensation of itching, emanating from deep within the tooth itself, the nerves alight and aflame, with the need to be scratched. I first thought that perhaps I just needed to clean my teeth. I brushed, flossed, and even used mouthwash, but with no effect. Experimentally, I ran my fingernail lightly over my front tooth. All I felt was the slight sensation of contact, but nothing close to sating the deep itch coming from within. Frustrated, I grounded my teeth together, and the pressure put on them distracted me momentarily from the unyielding urge to scratch. However, the moment that I realized the pressure in my jaw, the sensation returned in earnest. I tried to ignore the feeling. I put ice in my mouth to numb it, but that just made my teeth ache from the cold. I chewed gum. I sucked on hard candies. I played video games for hours, hoping that the feeling would go away if I ignored it. Finally, I resigned myself to just attempt to get some sleep and hope it would be gone in the morning. Sleeping with an itch you can't scratch is much easier said than done. I tossed and turned, grinding my teeth, biting my pillow, even gnawing on my knuckles, anything to make the damn feeling stop. After a night without any rest, I went into work as usual, downing extra coffee to make up for the lost sleep, trudging through the workday with a grimace. I called my dentist and made an appointment for a week away, thinking that I could make it until then. But after 2 more nights of not sleeping, I was about at my breaking point. I googled all I could about dental care and decided to take a closer look at my teeth. I noticed that one of my black molars looked like it was cracked, and when I touched it, a sharp pain shot through my jaw. I figured that I must have ground it too hard in my fitful rest. Now, here is where I made a rather radical decision. The dentist's office wouldn't help me. Fine. I figured, fueled by lack of sleep and a maddening itch, I would just help myself. Pulling out your own tooth isn't something that I would ever recommend. Just figuring out the logistics was difficult enough, and it took several tries to get the thing out, by which time my mouth was bleeding pretty significantly. After cleaning it off, I examined the tooth. It was definitely cracked right down to the center, so I figured that it would have had to be removed anyway. I flipped it over to examine the roots and noticed something really odd. The tooth was hollow, like a disappointing chocolate egg. It was just a white enamel shell with no density to it, little marks lining the inside, but empty all the same. Fuck, I thought. I probably left some of it in my mouth. I opened wide to examine, and what I saw fascinated me. A little yellow stalk sprouted up from my gum, branching outward like a fine sea plant, swaying slightly as I breathed in and out. I experimentally touched the end of the stalk with a shaking fingertip and felt my knees buckle underneath me. I can't describe to you the immense sensation present in that tiny piece of myself. It was like scratching every itch I had ever at the same time as having a very intense orgasm. Overall, by far the most satisfying thing I have ever felt. Still reeling from the experience, I had a realization. The itch coming from that tooth had subsided entirely, now replaced only by a feeling of calm contentment. My other teeth were still bothering me terribly, but in that one spot in my gum line, I finally felt the relief I had been seeking for days. I openly wept as I ran my tongue over the exposed nerve, rocking back and forth in bliss. Now that one tooth had been assuaged, the rest began to positively throb with the need to be given similar treatment. I sweated as I looked at my pliers, but a few more strokes of my nerve, and I knew that I had no choice. It turns out that all of my teeth were similarly hollow, the nerves left behind and sticking out of my gums like the tiniest, most wonderful bean sprouts. I kept running my tongue over them, and I shudder with pleasure each time the appendage swipes over the stalks. I can feel them move in my mouth, swaying and alive, and I feel somehow maternally proud. Most importantly, my teeth have stopped itching. My partner will be home soon, and she's been complaining of tooth trouble recently as well. I'm smiling, feeling the air fresh against my nerves, and I think to myself that perhaps she would benefit from this treatment I've discovered.
The following story is true, and I've been suppressing it for a while. When I was 17, I had a long-distance girlfriend. A girlfriend I'd end up getting ready to propose to before she left me after 5.5 years. Anyways, enough of that sob story. She moved to a town 700 miles away from me. In the summer, I wasn't allowed to drive long by myself, so I asked my parents if I could take the bus up there. Somehow, they agreed. Flash forward, her parents and my parents decided to drive me halfway for a trade-off. The town halfway between my town and hers was holding a motorcycle rally. A rally where a man and a woman with no proper motorcycle safety gear decided to tailgate us. I bet you can guess what happens. The person in front of us slammed on their brakes, causing us to hit ours as well. According to the driver behind the motorcycle, the man driving the bike didn't have both hands on the handles and was pointing at a close-by mountain to his female passenger. They laid the bike down at 65 miles per hour into gravel. No helmets, no leather, no boots, jeans, but that's not very protective when you are wearing a tank top as well. We hear it and pull over immediately. She had a twisted spine and mangled leg, laying down in the middle of the road. He was 15 feet in an empty ditch filled with nothing but litter, rocks, and now a Harley Davidson and a man. He was bleeding bad from the whole right side of his body, while my parents were talking to dispatch on 911. She was moaning, asking what happened, but no blood, just pain. I said I'd be right back. I'm going to check on the man, so I ran to the man, who looked like he needed immediate help. His tattoos were all shredded from sliding 50 yards on pavement and gravel. When we made eye contact, this big biker guy looked like a 4-year-old who lost his mom at a store. I ripped off my shirt and wrapped his head because, in all honesty, I noticed his ear was nearly completely ripped off of his head. I tried my hardest to stop the bleeding and the pain. Flash forward 10 minutes of me comforting him in this chaos and attempting to get all bleeding to stop. I watch him get airlifted off the highway as the highway patrolman says the following to me. "Because of you, the body count was only 1. I looked at him confused. 1? I look over to where the woman was laying earlier. She was still there, but with a white sheet over her. Was she already dead before I ran up to her? Did I imagine her last words? Why didn't I try to comfort her? Could I have saved both? Anyways, he lived, and she didn't. Death isn't always peaceful, but sometimes living isn't always peaceful either. We've all thought about it. You know what I'm talking about. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, old or young, married or single, gay or straight, God-fearing or atheist. You've thought about it, same as I have. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not alone. My doctor promised me that most people think about it, not just me. I thought about it last night, making a quick late night stop at the convenience store for the standard beer and cigarettes. I was a little short on cash, and the plastic in my wallet had already been stretched to its limit, and so I had to swallow my pride and pay in change. I save my change, you know. It comes in handy, times like these. And so there I was, paying. You understand. My money's as good as anyone's. I didn't cut the line. I was in front of that corpulent, impatient piece of shit, fair and square. I counted my quarters and nickels and dimes and pennies as quickly as I could. Then I heard him sigh. Then I heard him swear under his breath. And then the asshole said, plain as day, and for everyone to hear, "Couldn't you at least have rolled up that fucking shit before you got here, douchebag?" I did not answer him. I paid and left with my things. But when I was alone in the parking lot, I thought about pulling the tire iron from out of my trunk and caving his head in with it. His car was the only other one here, parked off to the side and in the dark. I could have splashed his gray matter 3 feet wide and an inch thick on the asphalt before he'd had so much as a chance to take a bite of that spicy chili dog his fat ass didn't need. I'm so relieved I only thought about it. There would have been so much cleanup if I had done that. And I'm not as young as I used to be. I might have been killed in the trying. I don't want to go that way. I thought about it again this morning. I had to go in for a job interview at 6, when it was still dark out. The stupid high school principal wanted it done before the staff and students came. Custodial work. A position for after hours and weekends, when there wouldn't be kids. All because of some stupid bullshit that happened more than 10 years ago. I'm not going to get into it. I paid my dues. I paid hard. Now I needed a damn job. That's all. One with benefits. Got to cover the doctor and all that. You know how it is. My ancient wrinkly-assed uncle told me not to sound desperate. He said it was more important that they felt like they needed me, not that I needed them. But that principal, she just had to know how important this was. I admit, it was most of what I talked about. But I promised I'd do my best. Not like at the shoe store. I knew better than to pull any of that dumb shit again. But I also recognized the line she came at me with.
"We'll call you,"
she said. Right. I've heard that monkey piss before. And yeah, I thought about it too. Then there was a letter opener on her desk. There was a heavy-duty pair of scissors. I could reach over and take that letter opener or those scissors. No difference, same effect. And I could have hacked her face off with them, starting with her eyes one at a time before smashing her teeth out after she was already dead, just for my own personal satisfaction. All I had to do was make the decision, lean over and do it. There wasn't anyone else in the office. I could make it out of the building before the rest of the custodial staff figured out what had happened. The front office was right by the entrance. I sure am glad I didn't give in to the temptation. The consequences would have been unimaginable. I definitely get caught, more I consider it. I'm no good at getting away with things. I'm on certain medications. The doctor says these are necessary for me if I want to be able to function in society. I have antidepressants, antipsychotics, and a little yellow pill for my mood, for my temperament. I take that one in the morning, 8 o'clock sharp. Fucks a bit with the old memory, but what can a poor man do? Follow a doctor's orders, that's what. Just like my mother always said. Right around 10 o'clock in the morning, it was time to visit that cantankerous, denture-chewing, diaper-wearing, wheelchair-riding, oxygen-sucking, swaddled-up bundle of inadvertent flatulence that is my only living relative, my uncle. I needed money. He had money. He had advice too, as always, but I didn't need any of that. I needed the fucking rent, that was all. I was trying. I'd gone on the goddamn interview. I told him I was doing my best, but it wasn't enough, of course. Hadn't been since my parents passed. It wasn't enough to try. I had to obey, even now, even at 56 fucking years old. Told me he'd have me begging the government for unemployment if I didn't do as I was told. And I can't do that. Daddy would turn in his grave if I did that. Couldn't help but think about it then. I'm certain you understand. You were in the kitchen. The door to the basement was less than 10 feet away. First, I'd unhook his oxygen. Then I'd roll his complaining and bitching old bones straight down the stairs, wheelchair and all, throw the oxygen in after. Still on and hissing. His imminent and long overdue demise. Fuck that old blower of squirrel meat. I'd send his own lit Zippo straight after him and listen to his skin roast. Sure's a good thing I didn't do it. I doubt if I'm in his will, he's probably got it all earmarked for a charity or some such twaddle and his family. A man doesn't kill his own family. There's no justifying that, no matter what. I'm not a religious man, but I'd take a fair bet you'd go to hell for that. I paid the rent at 11:30. I cracked a beer and sat down to some Price is Right and afternoon pills. I didn't have an appointment with a doctor today. I could take it easy. I like the way the bear fucked with my pills, and the way that together they fucked with my head. They made life easier, less complicated. And what do you know? Local news cut in on my carefully planned, nationally syndicated game show watching. It was now noon, after all, and I do live in a very small town. 3 murders is a big deal here. A real big deal. Couldn't hardly stay awake to catch the details though. 3 murders, I thought. All in a day. That's gotta be just one person. Someone got right fed up. Someone, I mused. Who does more than just think about it?